Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to the channel. My name is Mark Roden, and today we are doing another Are these Facebook Marketplace cars worth it? And if not, how much should you ask them for it? And what should you ask them as well when you're messaging them? This whole series isn't to actually help people that are looking to buy the specific car that I'm looking at, but rather just kind of try and help people understand what they should be looking for when looking at cars, and what to ask people and stuff like that. Today we're going to do it on a specific set of cars, which are Lexuses, Lexi, whatever you want to call them. We're going to be looking at Lexus. I love Lexuses. It's such a weird word. I love them though, and I kind of know the market for almost all of them. GS300 SC chassis, the IS chassis, all those chassis, LS chassis. I know pretty much the market for all of those, but I do have a couple sprinkled in there that I'm not too familiar on, like the ES, the RX, and the RC. But either way, it should be fun. If you guys want to support the channel any more than you already are, we got hats, shirts, and shorts for purchase at www.smoothstance.com/shop to pick yourself up one. And with all that out of the way, guys, let's get right into the video. Okay, so I was doing some math real quick, and I realized the car that I picked the most of is the IS300. So we're going to start with this IS300 first then. $7,000 for a 2001 Lexus IS300 with an automatic transmission and 134,000 miles. After that, we go and look at the description, and it's very vague, very, very vague. Not a lot of info to go off of here. It says the same thing that it says already over there. It has coilovers, brakes, calipers, which he should have just, you know, he didn't have to specify that he also has new calipers and pads. You said new brakes. I figured that meant the whole thing. But anyway, battery, upper radiator hose. It's, you know, things like that. Whenever they say, like, you have new this, new that, you have to look at it in a way of, like, who cares? You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, a new upper radiator hose for an IS300, how much? That's what, 20 bucks, and it's like a 20-minute install. It's nothing. New brakes, everybody does brakes, okay? That's, once again, a very average job. The only thing that's actually interesting on this car is that it has coilovers. It also, he doesn't mention the fact that it's been painted. It looks like it has new headlights. It has a bunch of other new aftermarket parts that he completely doesn't mention. His whole description there is incredibly vague. This whole car, though, as we will see in the later parts of this video, is overpriced. IS300s for an automatic transmission, $7,000 with 134,000 miles. That's overpriced. So I would just stay away from this one. But if you really do want it, you have to ask this guy a lot of questions, because once again, his description is so vague. All right, next up is this 1999 Lexus ES300. Very good daily drivers, very slept on cars, by the way. They're $5,000 for 131,000 miles and an automatic transmission. Now, this is $2,000 cheaper than the IS300 that we just looked at, but this one is completely bone stock. Everything works on it. So he literally says a very reliable car, just turn key and go. He has an incredible description here that tells you almost everything that you need to know about the car. There is a couple things that you want to ask, like, for example, things that I always ask. I know usually they don't have this, but I always just ask, is it a stock motor? Usually they're not swapped motor, and if they are a swapped motor, usually they put that in the description, but you always just want to ask that, because some people will try to just lie to you about it, so that you come and look at the car and you don't even know it's a swap motor and you buy it on the spot, and that's just a horrible idea. But anyway, yes, this is a much less desirable car than the IS300, but it's $2,000 cheaper than that car, and in my opinion, it's in so much better condition. I think this thing is a much better deal than that IS300 we just looked at. This is an idea of a good deal for a Lexus, I think. I would still try to get it down to around 4K, but I think it's still a pretty good deal. All right, next up is this 2000 Lexus GS 400. So this actually has the 1UZ in it, the 400s do. Has 152,000 miles with an automatic transmission, and it has $4,500. And then he gives you all this mumbo jumbo. He says, he puts in quotation marks, drift car, which I like that, because it shows that he's not too ahead of himself. He doesn't think that this car is like something super special and ready to go right out the gate. He tells you right here in the thing, everything that it has that's on it, that's like something that's, you know, a drift part oriented, and it kind of is on the way there, you know. He says that the check engine light did just come on, and that's the only problem, but it's just for a knock sensor, which if you know that a knock sensor is not that hard for repair. I think this is, once again, an amazing deal. Yes, it does have 152,000 miles, but it's a freaking 1UZ, okay? 1UZs can go to literally 1,000,000 miles, so you'll be all right. And it looks sick. It's got a bunch of aftermarket parts on it, and it looks like he took really good care of this car, so I think it's a good idea. Now we're going to jump to a car that is a bad idea. Once again, a GS300. This is the second GS300 on this video. This one is the opposite of the last one. The last one, yes, it does have mods on it, and mods don't add value, but in my opinion, mods do add value when it's done correctly, and you can kind of tell that that guy did those mods correctly. You could just, when you look at Marketplace for so long, you can start to tell by pictures whether the mods are done nicely or just horribly. And that last car, trust me, it looked like it was done well. This one, though, It's completely bone stock, and it has 170,000 miles, and he's asking pretty much the exact same price, and it's a GS 300, not the 400, which in my opinion is worse. I know, argue with the wall. And then on top of that, he has zero description. Nothing about it in the description, so that's automatically sketchy right there. If people don't have a description, you can talk to them, but chances are they listed that car lazily, and they're not even really looking to get it sold, and it's just a waste of your time. Next up is the first LS400 of this list, a 1993 Lexus LS400, $5,700, which may seem a little bit overpriced for an LS400, but it only has 85,000 miles. That is incredibly low miles. Everything about it is pretty much perfect. It says some things like the drive recorder is starting to have surface rust and crack a bit. Everything on it is pretty fine. The paint is getting faded. The ECU was replaced. Shouldn't be too much of an issue. ECUs are worrisome though, buddy, because my 350Z, that's what's wrong with my 350Z, and it sucks. So whole electrical issues are always just like something that's so scary. But either way, this one looks like an amazing deal. I mean, 5,700, you could easily talk this guy down to 5K, maybe even 4,500, and for one of the most reliable cars in the world, literally still to this day, with only 85,000 miles on it, and it's rear-wheel drive and something kind of cool and luxurious, I think that's an amazing deal. But now let's look at another car that I don't think is a good deal. It's a 2006 Lexus IS 250. This is the second generation of the IS cars, and the IS 250 is much less desirable than the IS 350, but he still wants $5,300 for one with 158,000 miles on it. That's pretty high mileage there, buddy. And on top of that, his description is nothing. Car is in good condition and negotiable. Now, I want to put it out here. I'm sorry for anybody that owns an IS 250 or second generation IS car, but right now, the second generation IS cars are worth nothing. Nobody really wants them, and they're not that valuable. So a $5,800 one for 150 or 5,300, my bad, for 158,000 miles. I don't know. It's also is a Lexus, so it does have a reliable motor, obviously, but it's just sketchy to me. I wouldn't go for this one personally. Next up is this car that's always forgotten all the time, and I gotta be honest, I don't like the looks of them, but whatever. It's a Lexus SC430. We all know it. We all have an opinion on it. This one's listed for $6,500 with 125,000 miles on it. That's actually pretty low miles for a Lexus, so I can't really complain about that. But at first you're like, ooh, that's a little bit steep, you know, that's a little high up there, buddy. Yeah, blah, 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 blah. And then you look at the next slide. It's got a rebuilt title. On top of that, the paint is fading bad on the car, he says. This is just not worth it. This is a short entry, not worth it. Let's go ahead though and go over to an SC400 now. I love the SC chassis. I know everything about their market value right now, and gotta say the SC400s, very low price. Here's a perfect one right here. 161,000 miles, which is very high, yes, but it's only $4,700. You could easily talk that down to 4K. And on top of that, you go over to the next slide. Everything is completely fine. There's nothing wrong with the car at all. You can test drive it if you want to. You can even trade it. Nothing wrong. The only thing that is wrong with the car is that it looks like it's been in an accident, because he says that he matched the fender and hood, but it could be better. So why would you need to repair a fender, you know what I mean? But so it might have been in an accident, but either way, just check the frame rails and you'll be all right. If you go there to look at it, check the frame rails. The frame rails look like they've been in an accident before. They probably have. You might want to stay away from that. If they don't, then if they were in an accident, then it was probably something very minor. It doesn't really matter. But either way, I think this is an amazing deal. $4,700 for an SC400. These cars are great. Has a 1UZ in them. Rear-wheel drive. Look amazing. Huge aftermarket support. Great car. $4,700. Next up is another IS300. This one might kind of blow people away with my answer on it, but hear me out. So it's a $6,200 car with 170,000 miles, but it has a manual transmission. Now, if you go over, you can look at the pictures. I'm not gonna like show you guys all the pictures, but just gotta take my word here for it. Pictures don't do it justice. The car looks horrible in the pictures. Then you go over here, and it does have some things on it that are iffy. It's got rust. He bought the car all taken apart, so that means that he put it all back together, which is always sketchy. He says it could use some TLC and a couple other things. You know what that means. He also says it needs some interior pieces, needs the brakes, it maybe need a slight alignment. It's definitely a project. I want to get that out there, but for the market that a freaking IS300 manual is at right now, I gotta say this is actually a pretty good deal. I know it's mind-blowing, but a manual IS300, you can't find one for under 10 grand. And the fact that this is 4K under that, yes, it's going to need some work, but to be honest, almost any IS300, automatic or manual, is going to need some work nowadays. So I gotta say, I think it's a good deal. All right, next is another IS250. This is the example of what a good IS250 purchase looks like, okay? I love the IS250, but that last one was not good. This one's $300 cheaper with 40,000 miles less, It still has an automatic transmission, obviously. This one's all-wheel drive, though I don't know if the last one was or not, but this one says runs and drives, did an oil change every 3,000 miles, and always kept the interior fresh and clean. It does have a rebuilt title. It needs a new alternator, but keeps the charge for a good while. Also needs only one new catalytic converter, which I already have that comes with it. Any questions are welcome, blah, blah, blah. So it definitely needs love. I'm not going to sit here and argue with you guys on that, but this one, in my opinion, is just such a better deal than that last one. That last one had zero description, and if it has zero description, usually that means there's a lot of problems with it, and it was just $300 more for even more miles, and it looked like it was in worse condition. This one looks like it's been kept clean. If you want an IS250, I'd go with something like this over the other one. All right, next is another SC300 this time, though, not a 400, buddy. So this one has 172,000 miles with an automatic transmission. This one's going to be pretty quick. You can see there that it's definitely somebody's project car. They've been doing things to it. And then sure enough, if you read the description, there are lots of problems on it. He tries to make it out to seem like there's not a lot of problems. You know, he'll be like, oh, it just needs this, and then he'll talk a little bit again, then he'll be like, oh, it also needs this, and he'll talk a little bit and be like, oh, it also just needs this. It needs a lot of things. If you buy this, what you're doing is buying someone else's project. I don't recommend buying this car. It's going to give you a nightmare. Next up is a freaking SUV, buddy, just in case you're looking for an SUV or something. It's going to be really fast because I know nothing about these cars, but anyway, 2007 Lexus RX 400h, 111,000 miles for $7,500. Description just says very good condition. This car's not worth it. I don't care if it's an SUV or not, and it's a Lexus SUV. It's got over 100,000 miles, and it's over 10 years old, and it's freaking still $7,500. No, thank you. But anyway, next car is an LS 400, 185,000 miles, which is pretty high. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. It's obviously got an automatic transmission. It says it's always maintained, perfect for a build, needs some minor paint work. Every freaking Lexus is going to need minor paint work, by the way. Runs great, drives great, 180, blah, blah, blah. Car has no rust on it. It's honestly, it's in amazing condition. It doesn't say whether it's in a clean title or not, but most likely it is. Not a lot of people rebuilt LS400s because they used to not be worth anything, so there was no point in rebuilding them. So there's not that many rebuilt title Rs or LS400s out there. But anyway, this one, in my opinion, is a pretty good deal. I would say definitely try and talk this guy down just because of the mileage. It's so high. I would try to get it for like 3,500, maybe even 3K if you could. But at the end of the day, it is an LS400. They do run forever, and they are going up in price anyways, so you know that you'll make money on it if you do hold on to it for a while, so I think it's a good idea. Anywho, we started on an IS300. We're going to end on an IS300. This is a 2001 Lexus IS300 for only $1,800 with 187,000 miles on it. Pretty high. Automatic transmission. Now, obviously, you know for a fact that the car is going to have problems if it's only $1,800 in a market where IS300s are going for 5K all day. So, you look at it, it needs an exhaust gasket, brakes, battery, tires, and power steering pump. Motor just had all gaskets, so it doesn't leak any oil. Everything else is pretty much fine on it, but it needs all those things, and it does have some rust on it. Now, as somebody that doesn't know anything about cars, they might look at this and be like, oh, that's too much stuff. It needs too much stuff. But as somebody that does, all those things are relatively easy things to repair. They're actually not that difficult. An exhaust gasket is probably going to be the hardest one, to be honest. It's going to be an issue if the bolts are rusted on there. But besides that, I mean, I can't think of anything else that's really that big of a deal. Brakes? A brake job is the easiest thing to do on a car. Battery? You kidding me? Tires? Okay, I replace my tires anytime. Power steering pump? That can be an issue once again, but most of the time that's pretty easy too. And that's all it needs. That's all it needs to be a good car, and it's only $1,800 for an IS300. All that stuff you could probably buy for $500. $500 plus the $1,800, that's a $2,300 car that's running and driving. Yes, it does have high miles, but it's an IS300. Almost every IS300 has high miles. I think this is actually, surprisingly, I know it's going to surprise you, but I think it's actually a good deal. I would obviously try to talk them down to maybe $1,500 or $1,200, but I still think it's a good deal. But ladies and gentlemen, that is the end of today's video. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel for more. This is going to be a bit of a longer video, so I'm going to keep the intro nice and short today, but let me know other Facebook Marketplace cars that you want to see. I could do other car brands, or I could do like JDM cars, or I could do like drift cars or drag cars. You know what I mean? I could do a bunch of different like categories, but you guys seem to like the first video, so I decided let's do another one. Let's do it all about Lexuses. I like Lexuses. I think you guys like Lexuses. I'm sure. I don't know. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Das Vidania. Have a nice night.